December 1944. The Ardennes Forest, Belgium. A German panzer colonel stood at a captured American supply depot. Around him sat rows of identical green trucks. Hundreds of them. Each one fueled, maintained, and ready to move. His own division had traveled to this offensive using horses, actual horses, to pull artillery, to haul ammunition. The same way his grandfather's generation fought. He opened the logbook left behind during the American retreat. Inside, routine maintenance schedules for 10,000 vehicles. Just in this sector, that's when he understood. Germany had already lost. This is the story of how German officers discovered the true scale of American industrial power, not through propaganda or intelligence reports, but through physical evidence they could touch, count, and measure. By late 1944, the Wehrmacht was running on fumes, literally. Fuel shortages limited panzer operations. Supply columns relied on horse-drawn wagons. German soldiers marched while their equipment was towed by animals. Meanwhile, American forces moved differently. Every unit mechanized, every soldier transported. Supplies flowing forward in an endless mechanical river. German commanders had read intelligence estimates. They had seen reconnaissance photographs. But nothing prepared them for the moment they stood inside captured American positions and counted the evidence themselves. What they discovered changed their understanding of the war. Not slowly, through careful analysis, but immediately. In a single afternoon of inventory. This is how the Wehrmacht's logistics officers realized Germany was fighting an unwinnable war. Colonel Hans von Luck commanded the 125th Panzergrenadier Regiment during the Battle of the Bulge. His account appears in his post-war memoir, Panzer Commander, cross-referenced with U.S. Army records from the Ardennes Offensive. On December 18, 1944, his units overran American positions near Malmedy. Von Luck later recorded his first impression: complete mechanization. American infantry companies had arrived in trucks. Not just transportation to the front. Every squad possessed its own vehicle. Von Luck's men had marched 15 miles that morning. The Americans they captured had driven. The captured depot contained 847 trucks, according to German records submitted to OKW, the Wehrmacht High Command. These documents, now housed in the German Federal Archives, show the inventory that shocked German logistics officers. Von Luck examined the vehicles personally. Each truck identical, standardized, mass-produced with interchangeable parts. His own regiment operated 17 different vehicle models, most captured from various nations, each requiring unique spare parts his supply chain couldn't provide. The Americans maintained their trucks on predictable schedules. Von Luck found maintenance logs showing oil changes every 1,500 miles, filter replacements, systematic inspections. His own vehicles received maintenance when they broke down, if parts existed. Then Von Luck discovered something that changed his entire understanding. In the depot's administrative building, he found routine paperwork, supply requests, fuel allocations, vehicle replacement orders. The documents referenced 10,000 trucks assigned to First Army's supply network. Just First Army, one of several American armies in Europe. He did the mathematics immediately. If this single army possessed 10,000 trucks, and the Americans fielded multiple armies, the total vehicle count exceeded anything German intelligence had estimated. Von Luck wrote in his diary that night, now archived at the Bundesarchiv Militärarchiv in Freiburg, "We are fighting the American automotive industry, not their army. Their industry." The evidence was undeniable, and it was everywhere. German military doctrine emphasized maneuver warfare, rapid movement, decisive action, blitzkrieg. But by 1944, the Wehrmacht couldn't maneuver because it couldn't move. Official German army documents from 1944, housed in the German Federal Archives, reveal the scale of the transportation crisis. The entire Wehrmacht in the West possessed approximately 120,000 motor vehicles of all types. This number included cars, trucks, motorcycles, and half-tracks. By comparison, U.S. Army records show American forces in Europe operated over 450,000 trucks alone, not including jeeps, not including specialized vehicles, just cargo trucks. The German army also relied on 1.1 million horses. This figure comes from Wehrmacht quartermaster reports dated September 1944. More horses than motor vehicles. More horses than the German army used in 1918. These horses required food. Approximately 20 pounds of fodder per day per animal. In winter, when grass didn't grow, this fodder had to be transported by horse-drawn wagons, which required more horses. General Fritz Bayerlein commanded Panzer Lehr Division during the Normandy campaign. His after-action reports, submitted to OKW and now declassified, document the impossible mathematics of horse-based logistics. To move his division's supplies forward, Bayerlein needed wagon columns stretching 15 miles. These columns moved at walking speed, 4 miles per hour maximum. They required security detachments. They were vulnerable to air attack. And they consumed the supplies they were transporting. Bayerlein calculated that his division needed 800 tons of supplies daily during active operations. His horse-drawn transport could deliver 200 tons per day under ideal conditions, without air attack, without breakdowns, without the horses themselves requiring food and care. American divisions received similar supply tonnage, but their trucks delivered it, reliably, repeatedly, in convoys that moved 50 miles per hour on good roads. The difference wasn't tactical skill. It was industrial capacity translated into mobility. On August 25, 1944, the U.S. Army activated the Red Ball Express. This truck convoy system operated between Normandy beaches and forward units racing toward Germany. Official Army records document its scale. The Red Ball Express employed 5,958 trucks. These vehicles operated 20 hours per day on designated routes. French highways were marked with red balls every few miles, giving the operation its name. The system moved 12,500 tons of supplies daily, every day, for 82 consecutive days. This figure comes from U.S. Army Transportation Corps' records held at the National Archives. Each truck made the round trip from depot to front every 3 days. Drivers worked 6 hours on, 6 hours off in rotating shifts. The operation never stopped. Supplies flowed continuously. German intelligence observed this system. Reports filed by Wehrmacht reconnaissance units described the endless truck columns. Officers estimated convoy length by counting vehicles at crossings. Some columns took 3 hours to pass a single checkpoint. Generaloberst Alfred Jodl, chief of the operations staff of OKW, referenced the Red Ball Express in his interrogation after the war. The transcript, available through the Nuremberg trial records, includes his assessment. We knew the Americans had many trucks. We didn't understand they had rebuilt their entire logistics system around truck transport. No rail dependency. No horse dependency. Pure mechanical mobility. The implications were strategic. German forces depended on railroads. Supplies moved by train to railheads, then by horse-drawn wagon to units. Allied air forces destroyed railroad bridges, bombed marshalling yards, strafed locomotives. The entire system collapsed under air attack. American logistics operated differently. Trucks drove around destroyed bridges. They followed roads that railroad tracks didn't reach. When one route was interdicted, convoys switched to alternate highways. The system was flexible, resilient, redundant. German Colonel General Heinz Guderian, Inspector General of Armored Troops, submitted a memorandum to Hitler in December 1944. The document, preserved in the Bundesarchiv, analyzed American mobile logistics. Guderian concluded, "The enemy has mechanized supply to the point where their forward momentum is limited only by fuel consumption, not transport capacity. Our forces face the opposite constraint. We possess sufficient fuel in depots, but insufficient transport to deliver it." This was the fundamental difference. America had trucks. Germany had horses. In mobile warfare, this difference was decisive. In May 1945, after Germany's surrender, Allied intelligence teams examined captured German logistics records. The reports they compiled, now declassified, reveal what German officers discovered during the war. Germany produced 346,000 trucks total during the entire war. From 1939 to 1945, 6 years of maximum industrial effort. This figure comes from the United States Strategic Bombing Survey, which analyzed German production records after the war. America produced 2.4 million trucks during the same period, 7 times German output. But the disparity was actually worse than raw numbers suggested. German truck production involved 150 different models from various manufacturers. Each model required unique parts. Training mechanics to maintain this variety was impossible. Supply officers couldn't stock spare parts for every variant. Broken trucks sat idle waiting for components that might not exist. American production focused on standardized models. The GMCCKW, known as the Deuce and a Half, accounted for 562,000 units alone. Every truck identical, every part interchangeable. A mechanic trained on one vehicle could repair any of them. German logistics officers understood this difference intimately. Major General Rudolf Edward Licht, the Wehrmacht's chief ordnance officer, testified at his post-war interrogation about the standardization problem. His testimony, recorded in U.S. Army military intelligence documents, explained the cascading failures. "We captured many American trucks," Licht stated, "but we couldn't maintain them. We lacked replacement parts. We lacked mechanics trained on American vehicles. We lacked tools designed for American specifications." A captured American truck provided perhaps 2 weeks of service before breaking down permanently. Meanwhile, the Americans replaced losses from production that exceeded our total inventory. The numbers supported his assessment completely. In July 1944, during the breakout from Normandy, the U.S. First Army lost approximately 1,500 vehicles to combat and mechanical failure. These losses were replaced within 1 week. New trucks arrived on cargo ships, were driven off the docks, and entered service immediately. The Wehrmacht lost similar numbers in the same period. These vehicles were never replaced. German factories couldn't keep pace with losses. Soldiers improvised. They cannibalized broken vehicles for parts. They modified civilian trucks for military use. They returned to horse-drawn transport. By December 1944, Wehrmacht motorization rates had fallen below 1943 levels, despite another year of production. This data comes from OKW situation reports filed monthly. The German army was literally running backward in mechanization. Colonel von Luck witnessed this decline personally. In his post-war account, he described watching supply columns in late 1944. French farm wagons pulled by Flemish draft horses, driven by teenage boys too young for combat duty, carrying ammunition boxes stamped with dates from 1980. This was Germany's logistics system in the 5th year of the war. Meanwhile, American supply columns maintained mechanical precision. On March 7, 1945, American forces captured the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen, crossing the Rhine River before German defenders could destroy it. This event is extensively documented in both American and German military records. Within 48 hours, the U.S. Army moved an entire armored division across the bridge. The 9th Armored Division's after-action reports, available at the National Archives, document the crossing timeline. German defenders watched this movement with professional amazement. Generalmajor Otto Hitzfeld commanded German forces opposing the bridgehead. His post-war interrogation, conducted by U.S. Army historians, described what he observed. The Americans crossed the bridge in continuous columns, day and night. Their traffic control was mechanical. Vehicles spaced precisely. No confusion. No delays. Each unit followed predetermined schedules. By the second day, we could hear their trucks continuously. An unending sound of engines. Hitzfeld had expected the Americans to pause after crossing, to consolidate, to establish supply lines. Standard military doctrine required this. Instead, American forces expanded the bridgehead immediately. They pushed east, advanced 20 miles in the first week, maintained momentum without apparent supply difficulties. The explanation was visible from German observation posts. American engineers constructed supply routes instantly. They laid metal mats, creating temporary roads. Pontoon bridges appeared overnight. Trucks flowed across these improvised crossings in continuous streams. Hitzfeld's forces couldn't counterattack effectively. His units moved by night to avoid air attack. They relied on horse-drawn artillery. His supply wagons took 3 hours to move 5 miles. By the time his forces reached attack positions, American units had already advanced past them. The Americans weren't superior soldiers. They were mechanically superior. Mobility translated into tactical advantage. German Army Group B, defending the Ruhr region, submitted situation reports throughout March 1945. These reports, preserved in the Bundesarchiv, repeatedly referenced American truck columns as primary intelligence indicators. German officers tracked American movements by counting vehicles. One report, dated March 15th, estimated American logistics capacity at Remagen specifically. Enemy operates minimum 2,000 cargo vehicles across Rhine crossings per day. This permits forward deployment of supplies exceeding 5,000 tons daily. Our forces cannot interdict this volume. Air attacks ineffective due to enemy air superiority. Ground counterattacks impossible due to enemy mobility advantage. This was acknowledgement of defeat through logistics. German commanders understood they faced an enemy who could move faster, strike harder, and sustain operations longer, not through superior tactics, but through superior transportation. After Germany's surrender, U.S. Army historians conducted systematic interviews with captured German officers. The project, officially called the Foreign Military Studies Program, collected testimonies from hundreds of Wehrmacht commanders. These documents are archived at the National Archives and have been partially published in various historical collections. The testimonies reveal a consistent theme: shock at American material superiority. Generaloberst Goddard Heinrici, who commanded Army Group Vistula in the war's final months, provided detailed testimony about the logistics gap. His interview transcript includes this assessment. German officers were trained to think operationally: maneuver, concentration of forces, decisive action. But operations require logistics. We planned maneuvers we couldn't execute because we couldn't move supplies forward. The Americans planned simpler operations and executed them completely because their supply system functioned reliably. Generalmajor Hasso von Manteuffel, commander of the 5th Panzer Army during the Battle of the Bulge, addressed the truck disparity specifically in his post-war interrogation. We captured fuel at the offensive's beginning. American fuel, drums of it. More fuel than our entire army group consumed in a month, just sitting in roadside dumps. The Americans treated fuel as abundant. We treated it as precious. This difference in attitude reflected the difference in supply capability. Von Manteuffel continued. I ordered strict fuel economy. Engines off when stationary. No unnecessary movement. Then I saw American soldiers warm their trucks by idling the engines all night. They had fuel to waste. We had fuel to ration. That disparity explained the strategic situation completely. Colonel General Heinrich von Wiedinghoff, commander of German forces in Italy, provided testimony about American air supply capabilities. While trucks dominated ground logistics, the Americans also deployed transport aircraft systematically. Von Wiedinghoff stated, "We observed American C-47 aircraft supplying forward units by parachute drop. Routine operations. Daily missions. They supplied by air what we struggled to supply by road. This wasn't emergency resupply. This was normal logistics. The Americans possessed logistics redundancy, multiple systems. We possessed one system, failing." These testimonies weren't excuses. German officers after the war showed remarkable analytical clarity about their defeat. They acknowledged that logistics, not tactics, determined outcomes. Perhaps most telling was testimony from Generaloberst Alfred Jodl during his Nuremberg trial interrogation. When asked about Germany's strategic mistakes, Jodl referenced industrial capacity directly. We understood American production numbers. Intelligence provided statistics. But understanding numbers abstractly differs from seeing 10,000 trucks physically present. Statistics become real when you capture an enemy supply depot and cannot count all the vehicles before your position is overrun by enemy counterattacks. American logistics wasn't a number in a report. It was physical reality that dominated the battlefield. This was the revelation German officers experienced repeatedly. The truck disparity reflected broader American industrial dominance. Every category showed similar ratios. The United States produced 304,000 aircraft during the war. Germany produced 119,000. The U.S. built 88,000 tanks. Germany built 67,000. America manufactured 2.4 million trucks. Germany made 346,000. These numbers come from the United States Strategic Bombing Survey and German military economic records compiled after the war. The figures are well documented and widely accepted by historians. But simple production numbers understated American advantage. American industry operated safely behind oceans. No bombs fell on Detroit factories. No strategic bombing disrupted production. Workers weren't conscripted for frontline service. Resources flowed uninterrupted from secure supply chains. German industry faced constant attack. Allied bombers targeted factories systematically. Transportation networks collapsed under air campaign pressure. Skilled workers were drafted into military service. Resource shortages limited production runs. The United States Strategic Bombing Survey, published in 1945, analyzed these effects systematically. The survey found that German truck production declined 42% between January and September 1944 due to bombing disruption. Not from factories destroyed completely, but from interrupted component supply chains. A truck required approximately 2,500 individual parts. Bombing one component factory stopped final assembly at every manufacturer relying on those parts. The system was fragile, vulnerable, overwhelmed. German Minister of Armaments Albert Speer addressed this problem in his post-war testimony and in his memoir, Inside the Third Reich. Speer implemented dispersed production and underground factories to escape bombing. But dispersed production increased transportation requirements. Underground factories lacked efficient tooling. Productivity declined even as bombing effects were mitigated. Meanwhile, American production increased. In 1943, American factories produced 29,497 trucks per month average. In 1944, Production increased to 52,466 trucks per month. This acceleration came while also increasing aircraft production, ship production, and ammunition manufacturing. German officers who encountered American logistics saw the end result of this industrial dominance. Generalmajor Friedrich von Mellenthin, chief of staff for several panzer armies, wrote in his post-war book Panzer Battles about the psychological impact. Soldiers fight bravely when they believe in their cause and see possibility of victory. German soldiers in 1944 fought knowing that each tank destroyed would be replaced by the Americans. Each truck lost would be replaced. Each aircraft shot down would be replaced. Meanwhile, our own losses were permanent. This knowledge affected morale more than propaganda or speeches. The Wehrmacht was fighting American industrial capacity and losing. Every German officer who captured an American supply dump reached the same conclusion. Every commander who watched truck columns arriving endlessly. Every logistics officer who compared supply tonnages between armies. The evidence was overwhelming, consistent, and undeniable. By May 1945, the proof was absolute. The Wehrmacht, despite tactical skill and operational excellence, had been defeated by logistics. American trucks, more than American tactics, decided the war's outcome in the West. Colonel Hans von Luck survived the war and spent 5 years in Soviet captivity before returning to Germany. In his memoir, published in 1989, he reflected on that December morning in 1944 when he first counted American trucks at the captured depot. I realized that day we were fighting not the U.S. Army, but the entire American industrial system. Every soldier we faced was backed by that system. Every attack they made was supported by reliable supply. They could afford mistakes because they possessed material reserves. We couldn't afford anything. We were already spent. Post-war analysis by military historians confirmed von Luck's assessment. The U.S. Army's official history, the European Theater of Operations, published in multiple volumes between 1947 and 1973, examined logistics extensively. The studies concluded that mechanized supply was essential to Allied victory. German commanders had recognized this truth while fighting. In February 1945, with the war clearly lost, Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt was asked by a staff officer what Germany needed to turn the tide. Von Rundstedt allegedly replied, 2 million trucks and the fuel to run them. Nothing else matters. The quote, referenced in multiple historical accounts, captured the strategic reality perfectly. Today, military logistics doctrine worldwide reflects lessons from World War II. Modern armies prioritize mechanical transportation, supply chain resilience, standardized equipment, redundant systems. The principles American forces demonstrated in 1944 and 1945. The U.S. military's current vehicle inventory exceeds 300,000 trucks. Continuing the tradition established during World War II, modern logistics automation and computers would seem miraculous to Colonel von Luck, but the fundamental principle remains unchanged. Armies move on wheels, and industrial capacity determines military outcomes. The German colonel who stood in that Belgian forest in December 1944, counting American trucks and understanding Germany's defeat, witnessed the birth of modern mechanized warfare, not through tanks or aircraft or dramatic battles, but through supply trucks painted olive drab, numbered sequentially, and arriving endlessly. That's what industrial warfare meant. Not glory, not heroism, not tactical brilliance. Just trucks. Thousands upon thousands of trucks. And the nation that could build them, fuel them, and keep them moving, that nation would win.